are this afternoon's top stories. St. Kitts and Nevis commended on the economic progress made under the Team Unity government. Guyana's Minister of Communities says paid parking is here to stay, and nuclear powers boycott UN talks on weapons ban. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Today is Tuesday, March 28, 2017. I am Jazeera Flanders. Nationally, citizens and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis are being urged to cherish what they have in the Team Unity government and the work that administration continues to do on behalf of the people. Delivering fraternal greetings at the People's Labour Party's or PLP inaugural National Convention on Saturday, March 25th, member of the New Democratic Party NDP of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. George Walker, says St. Kitts and Nevis continues to excel economically while larger neighboring islands are experiencing economic contractions.
You go to the news, it's a global village now. You can't miss nothing. And you get the reports about the economies from countries down south. I think that's the best way we can put it. You hear of retrenchment. You hear we have to lay off workers. You hear we have to go to the IMF to get a plan. In other words, the economy is going through contractions. They have all sort of fancy terms that they use. And when you read the news out of, for example, Trinidad and now Barbados, you realize that we in the Southern Grenadines, in the Southern Caribbean, we are in a crisis.
The NDP official said it is a totally different story when one reads about what is happening in St. Kitts and Nevis.
We pick up the news and we read about St. Kitts Nevis. Follow me. You hear growth. You hear investment. You hear expansion. You hear scholarships. And there's a term, a big word we don't hear anymore in the region. I can't spell it. But for some strange reason, it's affiliated with St. Kitts. That term is called surplus. You don't hear that term anymore. And that's why I say to you, cherish what you have.
In January of this year, Prime Minister Harris reported for 2016, the fiscal operations resulted in a recurrent account surplus of $128.3 million, an overall surplus of $130.3 million, and a primary surplus of $154.7 million. Dr. Walker said the economic progress being realized in St. Kitts and Nevis comes as a result of the policies and programs implemented by the Team Unity administration, and he urged the electorate to appreciate the type of government it now has. Commissioner of Police Mr. Ian Quealy is underscoring the need for internet users to be vigilant and protect themselves from becoming victims of cyber crimes. This warning comes on the heels of increased phishing activity in the last few days, where internet users in St. Kitts and Nevis have seen an increase in attempts made by persons using duplicate or fake accounts to capture information from individuals posing as friends, requesting that they participate in an opportunity to receive a fund from a United Nations Democracy Fund. There is no such fund in existence. These fake accounts are being made by capturing real pictures from the Facebook accounts of current users and sending requests to their friends with instructions as to how to receive this funding. Several individuals in St. Kitts and Nevis have received this request. The Cyber Crimes Department within the police service urges persons receiving these requests not to reply and to inform their friends of the existence of these duplicate or fake accounts. Officers in the Cyber Crimes Department said employing vigilance online can reduce your risk of becoming a victim of online crimes. They noted, quote, using only trustworthy websites for online business transactions, avoiding the use of public or shared computers for financial matters, refraining from sending financial information using email, and by not responding to unsolicited messages about financial opportunities, etc., can reduce your risk, and added, by employing good sense when online, you can protect yourself, end of quote. Approximately 20 persons representing various governmental and non-governmental stakeholder agencies assembled at the Ocean Terrace Inn, or OTI, to participate in a one-day national consultation workshop on the Basel Convention and facilitation of the entry into force of the ban amendment. The workshop was organized by the Department of Environment in collaboration with the Secretariat of the Basel, Rotterdam and Stockholm Convention, or BRSC, for the United Nations Environment Program. It focused on raising awareness of the Basel Convention and the ban amendment and other related international agreements and arrangements, providing assistance to St. Kitts and Nevis to ratify the ban amendment and in implementing the Basel Convention, encouraging exchange of information and experiences, and supporting the development of recommendations for implementation of the conventions. Alistair Edwards, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture, Environment, underscored the significant importance of the workshop and in particular the BRS conventions. He said that small island states like St. Kitts and Nevis can use all the assistance possible to help protect the borders in some instances where the Federation cannot do it alone. The Permanent Secretary noted that the Federation welcomes initiatives that would enforce laws and enhance protection of territorial waters. Presently, St. Kitts and Nevis is in the process of executing 2 projects on a national level that can advance the implementation of the BRSC. These include the Minamata Initial Assessment Project, geared towards the ratification of the Minamata Convention on Mercury, and the Project for Development and Implementation of a Sustainable Management Mechanism for POPs in the Caribbean under the Stockholm Convention. St. Kitts and Nevis will be represented at the upcoming Conference of the Parties, or COP, to the Basel, Rotterdam or Stockholm Conventions, scheduled for April 24th to May 5th, 2017 in Geneva, Switzerland. The COP is the ultimate decision-making body of the conventions, and matters of national interest will be put forward for support and decision. Moving on to news on the regional scene, Guyana's Minister of Communities, Ronald Bulkan, says paid parking is here to stay, following outrage regarding newly installed parking meters. HGP's Kristen Mackingham has the details.
Minister Bulkan posited that it is the expectation that the 3-month suspension of the paid parking bylaws caters for concerns of the stakeholders to be met, arising out of consultations among the Council, the concessionaire, and representatives of the public.
I think it should be understood that Cabinet has not said that it is against an initiative of this nature, but it is seeking a renegotiation that will allow for a more equitable formula at the end of the day.
Minister Bulkan's comments came last Friday during an exclusive interview with Nightly News. He said Cabinet was of the view that there needed to be more consultation and that the renegotiation would address those concerns, including the deficiencies that were identified by the Finance Ministry and Attorney General Chambers in their review of the contract.
It was, I did express similarly disappointment that there was insufficient engagement and consultations, and particularly within the Council itself.
Minister Bulkan pointed out that the Cabinet respects the independence of the Mayor and City Council as a statutory body, but that government intervened in the matter after hearing the cries of the citizenry who had taken the streets repeatedly to protest the fees set for paid parking in the city.
That it will not seek to violate that independence or the autonomy that is granted to the Council under our Constitution, and that in principle it is not opposed to paid parking, but it equally acknowledged that the terms of the contract were disproportionately in favor of the concessionaire and that the fees were too burdensome.
Reporting for HGP Nightly News, I am Kristen Macklingham.
St. Lucia welcomes its first soon-to-be biofertilizer manufacturing plant, or Algas Organics. We hear more in this HTS St. Lucia report.
Managing Director of Algas Organics, Johannan Dujon, has more reasons to celebrate this year, as if winning the Young Entrepreneur of the Year in January was not enough. In March, he announced that his company would become the first biofertilizer manufacturing plant in the country. Dujon has been participating in the project partnership with the St. Lucia Fisherfolk Cooperative Society Limited, GEF, SGP, UNDP, and the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation and Agriculture. The project is dubbed the removal and utilization of seaweed from the east coast of St. Lucia to create organic compost for the farming industry. Based in Dennery, Algas Organics manufactures natural agricultural and gardening inputs.
The total budget for this project is $100,397 US, of which Jeff is contributing $50,000 US, with cash co-funding of $25,000 US from the St. Lucia Fisher Folk Cooperative Society, and in-kind contributions from the government of St. Lucia, ICA, and the Fisher Folk Association of $25,397 US. This project is still being implemented and will soon give to St. Lucia its first biofertilizer manufacturing plant, which will be located in a community called Boscodo.
In February, the Smithsonian Institute recognized Algas conservation efforts and selected the company to represent St. Lucia at the Earth Optimism Summit in Washington, D.C. in April. While Dujon credits his achievements to Synergies, he believes in giving youth a chance to showcase their talents.
And what Algas is working on exemplifies the saying that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And from day one, when we approached Mr. Romulus and said to him, look, we have this idea, all Mr. Romulus had to go by was the product that we had in our hand and my wood. That's it. And I think given, if you were to look at the trajectory from this point until now, it really highlights the fact that youth, if given a chance, can do brilliant things with reach way outside of just St. Lucia or the region, global reach.
The Ministry of Agriculture has also provided support to Dujon. Minister for Innovation and Sustainable Development, Dr. Gail Rigobert, says the initiative will help St. Lucia promote climate-smart agriculture.
You have indeed become the face of innovation for this ministry. You have taken a problem, assessed it, and you've been able to identify an opportunity. You've converted a nuisance into, as we've been saying this morning, a golden opportunity to resolve two problems simultaneously. To get rid of that repugnant, annoying, troublesome, sargassum weed, but also to help in furthering our agenda in advancing climate-smart agriculture and producing sustainable products.
Dujon's Earth Optimism Summit presentation will be streamed live around the world. The Algas Organics line includes products like Algas Organics Total Plant Tonic, a liquid feed with zinc and trace nutrients, promotes plant growth, and Algas Organics Soil Amendment, which adds life to soil affected by the usage of pesticides. Joachim Duplessis, HDS News Force.
And moving on to news on the international scene, for the first time in more than 20 years, the UN is debating a proposed treaty that would ban all countries from possessing nuclear weapons. The General Assembly is trying to make progress on what it says is a stalled effort at nuclear disarmament. But a number of member states, including the US, UK, and France, are boycotting the session, which they consider to be unrealistic. Al Jazeera's Rosalind Jordan reports from the UN headquarters in New York.
From across the globe, delegates gathered in the United Nations General Assembly Hall with a single goal: banning nuclear weapons worldwide.
The doomsday clock, indicating how close the humanity is to global catastrophe, has been set at 2.5 minutes to midnight, worst since 1953. Worse than any other time, even at the height of the Cold War.
UN ambassadors agreed to hold the conference in response to what they called stalled programs on nuclear disarmament in recent years. Among their concerns, efforts by the US and Russia to modernize their nuclear arsenals, as well as suggestions they might try to add more warheads, not cut the number. However, the nuclear states and their allies are boycotting these talks, some 40 countries in all. They're pointing to current global instability and threats from countries such as Iran and North Korea.
But in this day and time, we can't honestly say that we can protect our people by allowing the bad actors to have them, and those of us that are good trying to keep peace and safety not to have them.
Another objection: the treaty could undermine the negotiations regime already required by the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, or NPT.
A step-by-step approach to global nuclear disarmament is what we need to build trust and confidence. It will provide for tangible steps towards a safer and a more stable world where countries with nuclear weapons feel able to relinquish them.
Both diplomats at the conference and non-proliferation activists are dismissing the complaints from the U.S., the U.K., and other nuclear states. As one diplomat told the conference on Monday, this proposed treaty could give political cover to these countries' disarmament efforts. Of course, there's no way to test that proposition, at least not until a final treaty has been approved. Rosalind Jordan, Al Jazeera at the United Nations.
2 former rebels in Myanmar have been reunited in their homeland for the first time since giving up their armed struggle 16 years ago. The twins were part of the so-called God's Army as child soldiers and grew up to lead a violent struggle against Myanmar's military. Al Jazeera's Wayne Hay reports from Yangon.
Myanmar is on a seemingly endless, difficult road to peace. But in a remote southern jungle, the former leaders of the so-called God's Army have found tranquility. It's been 16 years since twins Luther and Johnny II and their small army gave up their fight for an independent Karen homeland. Now they're back from exile and reunited with family and friends.
Right now, we don't have a fight with the Burmese army. This is very good for the villagers and children. No more war.
In their prime, they were children who bizarrely became the leaders of an armed group that broke away from the much larger Karen National Union. After helping to fight off government soldiers in their village in 1997, their followers believed they were invincible. Johnny and his father came back to Myanmar from neighbouring Thailand several years ago. Now Luther has joined them from Sweden.
I'm happy to see my twin brother back. I'm glad that we can live together as a family again.
The Karen is a predominantly Christian ethnic minority group. For decades, the Karen National Union and its army fought for independence from Myanmar, which is mainly Buddhist. It's since signed a ceasefire deal, while the breakaway God's Army disbanded. But some other rebel armies continue to fight. When the National League for Democracy party of Aung San Suu Kyi won the 2015 election, it said its main priorities were peace and reconciliation. So far, the government has held one peace conference with rebel leaders, but some refused to attend or weren't even invited. And in some parts of the country, there is no sign of a ceasefire, let alone long-lasting peace. The two brothers say their guns are only for hunting these days. Their priority is still their people, but this time they want to help build schools and arm children with a better future.
I want to see the children and our young generation grow up with education. I don't want to see them carry guns and fight like me when I was a child soldier. I want the children to have a simple life and success.
The twins are retired soldiers at the age of 28. They've already lived through war and exile and still have most of their lives ahead. Wayne Hay, Al Jazeera, Yangon.
And now for the weather. Present weather is partly sunny. Winds are blowing from the south-southeast to south at 7 to 11 miles per hour. Today will be mostly sunny with a high of 79 degrees Fahrenheit. Tonight is expected to be mostly clear with variable winds. The overnight low will be 76 degrees. Sunset today will be at 6:23 p.m. and the sunrise tomorrow will be at 6:19 a.m. That brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am Shaira Flanders. Have a good one.